Howdy, Author Nation. Welcome back to lovely St. Pete's Beach. We're doing another interview here with the legendary Damon Courtney. At least he's legendary to me.
Yes.
You and me, the two people, you're legendary.
I know. I'll take legendary. That sounds good.
So how's your NINC been?
It's been good. I gave my talk yesterday, and it was all about direct sales, which is like kind of the big topic du jour. It really has been for the last couple of years, which is funny because, it was actually at NINC in 2017 that BookFunnel announced that we would now deliver direct sales. So, 2017, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And for many years, it just kind of bumped along, and some authors used it and very effectively, but not a lot. I mean, of all the features that BookFunnel has, it was one that didn't get a lot of attention from most authors. And then, I don't know, somewhere around 2022, about the time COVID was, really wreaking havoc. And I don't know if it was just the chaos of all of that, but authors suddenly looked up and went, maybe I need to own a little bit more of my future.
Yeah.
And so it really started to take off. Actually, I've been kind of beating the direct sales drum here at NINC for the last couple of years because that's what everybody's talking about.
Yeah, I think part of it is there needs to be those pioneers, and that those pioneers have the right tools, right? So the fact that there were some people doing direct sales before that, but it was kind of janky to do.
Yeah. Right?
So now that you had that, you notice that there was those early adopters who had some amazing results. So like, Pierre Janté is here.
Right.
I had him and Katie Cross at the Old 20 Books show on a panel that really got the message out.
Yeah.
And because they had those tools, they could do those things. They could put the pieces together finally, Shopify, BookFunnel, and some marketing strategies. And once people saw, oh yeah, that guy did it.
Yeah. Well, and they learned the lessons, right? So somebody ran out there first and took all the bullets for us. And then they were like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Let's not make that mistake. That's actually what my talk was about yesterday was, I think BookFunnel, probably more than any other company in the industry, is kind of uniquely positioned to see the data of what thousands of authors are doing, right? So the problem with the direct sales game is that everybody's running their own store and their own site, and everybody's doing it in a different way, right? Mm-hmm. If we're all, back in the day when we're all comparing Amazon and what we're doing, but we're all boxed in by the limitations, right? Amazon says your book has to do this, and your reviews and blah, 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 right? So all the discussion sort of centered around, well, I made my blurb better, or I tried to get my review team to get better reviews. When you're talking about direct sales, everybody's website could be 100% different from everyone else's. Yeah. But we see it all because we're doing ebook and audiobook delivery for most of the authors that are taking it seriously and doing direct sales.
Significant,
enough data points. Yeah, statistical significance, enough data points to look at it. And so the talk that I gave yesterday really was, okay, this is. We've had enough authors doing this for enough years now that we have some real data on the mistakes that we see over and over and over again, and some of the biggest authors and how they've sort of perfected their funnel and their system. And let me share with you some of the things they did so that maybe you don't make these mistakes. Somebody else has gone ahead and forged ahead and made the path for you, so you don't have to go and make all of these same mistakes again.
Yeah. Yeah, it might seem like the obvious thing to do, and then it's it's like you're doing the wrong thing, writer.
Right. And it's one of those things where it's like when you see someone else do it and do it right, it's like, oh my God, of course that's obvious, right? Until you go and you actually talk with Katie Cross and you find out it's like, oh, it took 20 iterations before we got that right. Yeah. But once you see it right, you're like, that's the right way to do it. And yet we still see authors, I don't think there's nearly as much, I don't know, people want to set up direct sales, and I don't think they probably study the authors who are out there doing it already. I don't think they spend enough time looking at other people's stores and going, okay, what did they do? Why did they do it that way? Because I think it should be this way, but obviously they're doing it that way. Maybe there's something to this that I'm not seeing.
I think what too often, and it's maybe it's an author thing, but I think it's generally the just kind of culture now is like, well, I'm gonna imitate this process and I should get the same results. And if you're the pioneer, you're going to do that, right? You're going to say, well, this is like this, I'll do it that way. And I can speak from experience, like what we're doing with the signing store and trying to find a high spending reader. One of the things I've had to explain to authors is, hey, we're going to send this person to a squeeze page. This is old school stuff.
Yeah.
To get an email. Your most obvious thing you're going to think is, why am I creating the friction and keeping them from the sale? Right? Just let's get under the cart. But I know, because I've looked at the data, the only people that are going to buy from the cart is somebody that's already been sold by you if you're an author and you're sending your fans there. If it's somebody new especially ones that we're finding cold, we have to build trust and earn the attention. And that takes dozens of emails, literally dozens of emails, and time for them to give you and start to think, oh yeah, now I understand the complexity of what you're asking of me. And it's not that complex. Now I'll go back, right? And I think the other things that's important about that is a customer that's been well-reasoned in their decision to finally decide to buy from you, that's going to stick. Somebody that makes a spontaneous decision buys, they may not even read the book, right? So yeah. I think, just as an example, I know you've got some great examples. I'll let you get to that.
Yeah, it's so you think about like a direct store and a new reader who's come in, right, and has doesn't know anything about you. Maybe you ran some Facebook ads and now they're here and they're on your store. You're foisting two asks onto them, right? If they land on your Amazon page and they've never heard of you, all you're really asking them is to take a chance on you as a new author. Hey, you haven't read me before, but you like science fiction and I write space opera. You might like my books, right? Mm-hmm. You send them to your direct store and you're asking for two asks. I need you to try me out as a new author, and I need you to try out my store and give me your credit card and pay it. Not that you actually get their credit card number, but a lot of people don't actually know that that's true. Mm. And so, whereas Amazon had to do that 20 years ago, right? They had to, more than 20 years ago, but I remember the earliest Amazon days when Amazon's big problem was people would go, I'm not putting my credit card in a browser. They're trying to steal my money, right? So Amazon had to
and there was a lot of people out there trying to steal your money.
Yeah. Sadly, they were not wrong entirely.
Websites look alike.
And so Amazon had the ask initially of I have to get you to trust that this is okay. That it's okay to give me your money and you're actually going to get the product and it's going to work the way that we say it's going to work, right? Mm-hmm. So, you send somebody to your direct store, you're doing that. You're saying, and they've never heard of you. It's I need you to take a chance on me as an author, and I need you to take a chance buying from an unfamiliar place. And that's a lot. So you say, I have to build trust. I have to show you that, no, I'm for real. I do write the books that you like, and I'm not a scam, right? I'm not here to steal your money. Because sadly, web design has gotten so good now that the scammers' sites really don't even kind of look like scams anymore. They're so good. They just look completely professional. And you're like, oh, I used to be if they had some crappy website and you could be like, yeah, this is definitely a scam. And now they look just as professional as anybody else's because it takes almost no time to build one. ChatGPT, made me a website that looks like a blah, 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 right? So, yeah, you're asking a lot of a new reader, so you have to build that trust before you're going to get them. Or you have to offer a discount that's so high that it overrides their fear response. And be like, well, I don't know, but that's a pretty sweet deal. Yeah.
But then there's the trade-off on that, right? Because now you're really training your system to find discount buyers.
Right. Which is a big problem. One of the things that I talked about in my talk yesterday was that, direct sales is working for a lot of authors, and it's great. Look, we get to keep more of the profit, and that's always nice, right? Especially when you're talking about audiobooks, where Audible is taking more than the lion's share of everybody's sales, right? So in ebooks, Amazon takes 30%. Let's ignore all the fuzzy math, but on average about 30% of a sale, and it's well, but that's probably okay. I'd rather not give up 30%, but that seems okay for what they're doing, right? They're handling the whole process or whatever, but not in audiobooks, right? And it's honestly one of the bigger reasons that I think that direct sales started taking off more on BookFunnel was we had launched audiobook delivery. And so suddenly now authors had a way to sell audiobooks direct. And if I sell that on Audible, number one, I don't get to set my price. I can't decide for my readers what I think my price should be. Audible decides that for me. And then they take, assuming you're not exclusive, they take 75% or more, if you look at their fuzzy voodoo math, of all your sales, instead of like, no, I'll sell an audiobook for $10 and I keep $9.40 when I sell it from my store.
Well, I know we did a project with Alex Newton and with some of my clients, and we looked at that we were trying to help with some calibration of some stuff. Anyhow, the data that came back is it's worse than what you're describing.
Right.
Because if you're really heavy in audio where you write long books and you're paying more per finished hour because you have a better narrator, which a lot of these folks were doing, when you get paid with a token,
yeah,
that's worth the same thing, whether it's a 10-hour book or a 4-hour book. So
right.
Like the longer and better you make your books, the less you're going to make on the whole lifetime of that thing, right? Because you only get whatever they're paying for that particular, and even that math was fuzzy.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyhow,
you have to be careful when you're building a system to note what are you incentivizing. And yeah, the way that Audible's credit system has been, so like KU for your Kindle Unlimited, for example, right? Because they pay by the page, you're not penalized for writing longer books, right? You receive greater reward, because if I can get you in the door and I've got 200,000 words, I read fantasy, so everything's 200,000 words, right? Then that's okay, because I get paid for 200,000 words worth of page reads. Whereas in the KU 1.0, it incentivized people writing 5,000, 2,000 word short stories because I got paid the same as your gigantic box set.
Yeah.
Right? Audible now does that, right? In the beginning, people would put 80-hour box sets on Audible because then everybody would go and buy them. But now, I guess if you already have all the content out there, boxing them up is a good way, especially a good way for a backlist to get the titles out there that really aren't moving that much anymore. But your front list titles, if I'm a fantasy author and I'm taking the time, writing 250,000 word doorstopper novels, and you're cranking out 50,000 word cozy mysteries, you're blowing my doors off, right? And I can't write, like, in my genre, no one's going to accept 50,000 word fantasy novels, right? It's just, it's not meeting the reader's expectation of the genre. And so suddenly,
that's called the Royal Road Post.
Right, exactly. That's one chapter. So now I'm actively being penalized. So what is Audible incentivizing? Because Audible doesn't care. I get the same $14.95 credit from the reader, whether they buy a 50,000 word cozy or 250,000. So from Audible's perspective, it really makes no difference at all. I don't care what you spend your credit on, whether it's a big book or a small book, because I only have to pay the author 25% of whatever magic number I decide, right? And so, but that creates a system that is incentivizing shorter, smaller books, and eventually readers are going to notice, and they're like, "What am I getting for my $14.95?" Right? And getting a 50,000 word book.
Yeah, for sure. So, that was the kind of the first mistake you were talking about. What about some of the other stuff that you've seen in the data?
So, BookFunnel has a unique perspective. We get hundreds of emails a day from readers. Like, our reader support team answers on average 200 to 300 emails a day. And they're very good at what they do, and they're very efficient. So, but we see when there is a problem, it comes up very quickly, particularly for an author that's moving a lot of books. And so as we've gotten bigger authors that are kind of trying out the whole direct sales model, number one problem that we see in our queue all the time is some variation of this message. I don't want ebooks. I thought I was getting paperbacks. Now, why a reader thought they were getting 14 paperbacks for $10 with no shipping costs, I'm not really sure, but they really do. And the mistake that we see, so our author support team, when we notice there's a problem consistently, right? Because you get random emails for everything.
Yeah.
But when we see like the same author is getting refund requests over and over and over again, our reader support team will file a ticket with author support and say, hey, this author's getting a lot of refund requests. We might want to go take a look at their store and see if we can figure out where the problem is and help them. So our author team will go and we'll usually purchase your books. Like, we'll go through your store process and we'll look at what you're doing and go, I see the problem. Big, easy one, right out of the gate. Authors may make their book covers, and I got my book cover image and it looks great, right? Yeah. And it's beautiful. And so then they go put it up, and you use a store like Shopify, and all the stores do it, but I'm just using Shopify as an example. You can create variants, right? So you have one product, and my product is my book, but I have an ebook variant, and I have an audiobook variant, and I have a paperback variant, right? And I put all three of those up, and I just use one image, and it's just my book cover, right? Except that there's nothing about that. Even if you put the word ebook really clearly on the page, even if you put it like 15 times really clearly on the page, you will get the people who are like, I didn't know these were ebooks. Like, you can put it on the button. You are buying ebooks. I didn't know I was buying ebooks. So one of the things that we've seen, like the authors who have kind of gone through this gamut and figured this out, is change the image. Use the same book cover, but when they click ebook, it's take that book cover and put it inside of an iPad and put a little iPhone down in front of it. This is a digital product. My favorite is, here is the audiobook cover, which if you're in our industry, you would think simply because it's square, I already know it's an audiobook. No. The readers don't understand that. Yeah. Put a giant pair of headphones over the top of the book cover. Same book cover. We're just changing it slightly. And then for the paperback or the hardback, you draw the three-dimensional book that has had leafed pages and has a spine, using those so that when they land on the page and they select one, the image is just one more hint that, hey, by the way, this is digital. These are digital books that you're buying. And when we've seen authors do that, it doesn't eliminate confusion, right? Nothing. And Amazon does it too. You go land on your product page on Amazon, and they have a little series of buttons. If this is the Kindle version, if you want the paperback, you click this button and you go to a different product page. And if you want the audiobook, you click this button, you go to a different product page, right? Yeah. It's no different. It's just that readers are... we have a phrase saying at BookFunnel that readers don't read. And so they really don't even notice that they've landed on this page, and because they clicked through a Facebook ad, right? And the Facebook ad said, get a 20-book series for $20. Mm-hmm. But in their head, they read paper, and so they're thinking, wow, $20 for 20 paperbacks, that's a great deal. And then they land on your page, and of course it says 20 books for $20. So it's just their mindset. You need to give them a little bit clearer language. And I will say, like, we have authors who quite literally put ebooks sprinkled, literally the word ebooks sprinkled throughout the product description. Who's like, this is a set of ebooks digitally delivered directly to your device. Ebook. And it's annoying because as authors, we're like, no, you're corrupting my words, my beautiful poetry and prose. And it's like, yeah, but I promise you don't want to eat that refund fee. So make it really clear that they understand what they're buying.
Yeah, that's that kind of what we were talking about earlier. Sometimes you want there to be some friction. Yeah. Right? Just so that, like, you don't have to deal with that, because so often we're like, just get them to click, get it in there, close the deal. And it's like, yeah, but then you may get a chargeback. Right.
Chargebacks are the worst. Like, even in refunds, right? So we, BookFunnel, we run a business. We have authors that pay us, and we get, a refund request all the time. 8% is my refund fee. If I have to refund your money, you sign up for a BookFunnel account and you pay me $100, and then you're like, I don't know what BookFunnel does. I just signed up because somebody told me, and I want to cancel my account and get a refund. I have to eat $8 just to give you your money back. And thankfully in ebooks and audiobooks, we're talking about less, but if they buy a $10 audiobook, you're losing 80 cents just to refund them that audiobook.
I know. I refunded a lot of tickets.
Yes. And the chargeback is even worse. Chargeback is like, oh no, that's $25 on top of the $8 that you had to refund.
Oh, and over time, if you get enough of those, then Stripe's going to say,
they start getting, hey, what are you doing over there? You're getting a lot of chargeback. Something's going wrong.
Yeah, we're going to hold on to some of this money for a little bit longer.
Right.
Because we're not going to pay it. You're going to pay it.
Yeah. So that's like number one mistake. I don't even say mistake, but the number one thing that we see in our reader queue where readers come in and request refunds or they're confused is they really thought they were getting something different. So doing everything that you can to make it clear what they're buying. if you do want to sell paperbacks, if you tend to be in a genre that readers like more paperbacks, then you should drive the traffic to the paperback variant of your page, right? So that paperback is selected first when they land on the page, so that there's no, because we have a saying in software, the devil is in the defaults. So if you default to ebook on every page, a lot of people will never see that little drop down, never change the format, and then will just go on to check out. And that's when they're like, oh, wait a minute. That's not what I thought I was getting.
Yeah.
If you're getting too many of those, if you're seeing that, maybe make the paperback the default. As I promise, I read ebooks. If I see that you got paperback selected, I'm going to select ebook. First of all, because I'm going to notice the price.
Yeah.
$10 for 10 books is perfectly reasonable for ebooks. $10 for 10 paperbacks? No, something's wrong, right? Yeah. But if I click on your paperback page and it's like, 10 books for $100, I'm like, ebooks don't cost $100. Oh, yeah, I've got the wrong format selected.
Cool. I think that also this gets to what's your, the bigger thing you're thinking around your marketing strategy. Are you at a point where you're just like, hey, I'm trying to get my store kind of jump started and really focusing on maybe some kind of deal offer to get it built and see if this is really for me? Then maybe you should be kind of doing some stuff on a long form sales page and focused on selling those ebooks as a deal. But this other traffic, almost like an A/B test, is going to that book, and because in my view, we're at a point where yes, it's going to take longer. It's going to cost more. But if you go and focus on finding a customer that's going to buy something that's of a higher value, you're getting the best indicator possible, which is they are prepared to pay for more stuff more often at a higher price. And guess what? You don't need as many customers then.
Right.
The whole thing that's been around for 20 years of 1,000 true fans.
Right.
There's some things, if you do right, you only need 100 true fans, and still make those numbers work. So we were talking on the walk over here about, you were throwing out some of the stuff that they should be selling.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And that's the truth is that if you're not the kind of author who's cranking out a book a month, right? If you're not throwing a book over the wall every month where you can keep sustaining that forever for your career, right? Assuming that you are, you're headed over to Author Nation, not because you're thinking of this as a hobby, but because you want to be a career author, or you want to make a full-time living, right? But if you want a sustainable career and you want to be in this longer, unless you're cranking out a book a month, you're not going to make it long term unless you can get people to buy higher priced items. This is why we've seen such a surge in authors doing Kickstarters for their books to sell those, beautiful leather bound, embossed editions, right? Yeah. Brandon Sanderson went off and did it, right? Yeah. I backed his Kickstarter. I bought all 4 of them, and they're beautiful books. They're incredible, right? And the thing is if you're doing enough of that, you have to pay for the hardbacks, but you might pay $10, $11 for this beautiful bespoke hardcover, but your fans are willing to back you on Kickstarter and pay $60 for that book. So you're still getting, even after shipping, you're still getting way more profit than a $2.99 or $4.99 ebook. Or if you're in KU and they're paying you 88 cents every time they read your book, it takes time to build because not everybody cares. I'll give you a really good example. Michael J. Sullivan, fantasy author. Yeah. I'm a fantasy, reader, so that's what I read. And I started reading him way back in the very beginning as a self-published author, and then he went TradPub, and then he went back to self-pub. He does Kickstarters for all of his books, right? And 5 years ago, I would back his Kickstarters for $10, which was basically the lowest level that I could get the ebook. And the offer was, hey, if you back my Kickstarter, you get the book 3 months early. Yeah. Right? And then, it'll be in Amazon. And if you don't want to back my Kickstarter, that's okay. It'll be in Amazon September 1st. Yeah. But at the beginning of the summer, if you want to read it 3 months early, you back it for $10 and you can get the ebook. And then he would have the higher level tiers where you get the beautiful leather-bound hardback edition with embossed cover and illustrations or whatever, right? Everybody does their books a little differently. But yeah, 5 years ago, I backed 4 of his Kickstarters for $10 because I just wanted the ebook early. I liked his books. And then somewhere along the way, I became a true fan. Talking about Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans, I became the true fan. And the last 4 Kickstarters, I've backed, $75, $100. No, I want the I want the pretty
I
book.
want everything.
I want everything, right? I still get the ebook early because that's part of the deal, right? But no. I also now want to put those books on my shelf, and I want to do that. And I don't do that with every author that I read. But once I become the true fan, yeah. Oh, you got a Kickstarter? Brandon Sanderson, $250 for 4 books you're not even going to tell us the title of? Yeah, shut up and take my money.
Yeah. Well, and, people can go on this channel, if you're on YouTube, and look back at some interviews with Robin and Michael.
Oh, yeah.
And look at the dates. Look how long ago I was talking to them about what they were doing on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they taught me was like, oh, yeah, if you look with, all of the books, the special, I think it's the nicer books.
Yeah.
You get the ebook included in it because they know that some people want that is because they're going to read the ebook. They just want that to decorate a shelf.
Yeah, I'm not going to crack the spine of my book. Yeah. I open it up, like even when I would get the book shipped, and I got Brandon's books on his 4-book Kickstarter, I would open the books and show my kids, like, oh my God, guys, look at this. This book is amazing. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, look at these illustrations, these full-page, full-color illustrations that were set throughout the book. Like, it was a beautiful book.
Don't get this close.
Yeah. It's like,
wash
well,
your hands.
don't touch it. But like, I looked at it, I admired it, I put it on my coffee table so I could look at it for days, and then it went on my shelf. I don't read paper. I read everything in ebook.
Yeah.
My wife does everything in audiobooks, right? So we're all digital in our house. My kids all have Kindles. They all read. Like, they don't like physical books. When they get books from school, they'll, my daughter comes in the other day and they're reading Freak the Mighty, and she's like, Dad, can you get this book on my Kindle? Because you don't want to read the paper book. She wants to read it, and she got her backlight, and she sits up in bed, and like, everybody likes to read the way they like. Yeah. But I now, and that used to be my mentality, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to back the hardback. I'm not going to read that. What am I going to do with that? But then, like, something shifted over the years. I went from fan to true fan. Yeah. And now I'm like, no. Now I want those books. I want them on my shelf. Yeah. So I will, and I want to support the author, like, more than anything. If I see an author has a direct store, 100%, I'm the reader who will go and buy it directly from your store, especially if you use BookFunnel, because then it just goes into my app and I get to read it. But like, it really is, we have to, I think more authors are going to have to get there. If you're not the kind who can just crank out a 12, 15 books a year forever, and they're out there, right? And God bless them. Like, I hesitate to say they don't have to put in as much effort. They do. The effort is in writing their books. They don't have to do quite as much of the marketing. They don't have to maybe go do direct sales. And yet, even then, those authors who are so prolific, we have seen them taking older series out of Kindle Unlimited and moving them to direct sales and going, you know what? This series doesn't do so well anymore. It's old, and all the KU readers have read it, right? You will exhaust the KU pool. Now you keep cranking out new books, and bang, they'll keep cranking them in, right? But eventually, you've sort of exhausted that pool. They've seen your book. It's passed through their Kindle a dozen times, and they either decided they already read it, or I'm not interested. I don't want to read that, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll find that those older backlist titles, those older series sort of start to trickle off, and they don't make as many sales anymore. And we've seen even bigger authors that are hugely committed to their KU audiences taking those older series out and going, you know what? Let's just see if we can sell this direct. Let's run some Facebook ads and see if maybe we can get some more juice out of this, right?
Yeah. And I think that's you maybe need to do that. If you've got some of that backlist, you can try that out to see if you can do the store, see if it's going to work. But what I always suggest to authors is that once they decide they're going to commit to the direct process, reevaluate your product release and make direct first.
Yeah.
Right? Basically, my thinking is it's, Amazon has decided what my book is worth based either on page reads. It's going to end up in KU. Let's talk about
right.
Just any on the street. So we know what that number is. When do I think it's worth that?
Right.
That's when it should go in. Now, are you going to have readers that write you and tell you that this is horrible and you're ruining their lives? But the answer is easy. It's just you're going to get the book.
Right.
Just not first. Because when my books come out, they're not worth $2.99 in page reads. They're worth $5.99. And it's pretty simple math, right? What I've seen a lot of times is when you start doing the math on KU readers versus a direct reader, it's anywhere between a direct reader is worth anywhere between 3 and 6 KU readers.
Yeah.
So again, you don't need as many.
Yeah, you don't need to get 100% of your audience to follow you over there.
I would argue you don't want any of your audience to follow you over. You
Yeah.
want to start and find a new audience.
Yeah, an audience that does not utter the phrase, I only read free books.
Yeah.
We see that. I mean, BookFunnel gives away lots of free books, right? We do 130,000 downloads a day at BookFunnel. So we see lots of people, and, you know, they reply to authors' emails or whatever, and they signed up for your list, and then they find out you're not in KU, and they reply back with, well, I only read free books.
And their value proposition is an amazing one in KU. They have this endless supply of books to read all the time for a fixed price.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they're pretty easily substituting authors.
Yeah.
Right? We're not looking for those people, or at least I wouldn't be. I mean, we know where to find them. They're real easy. They're there all day.
You know where they are. They're waiting for you if you decide to go that route.
Yeah. And yes, it's harder work. It takes longer. It requires patience. But, like, you get 1, now you have information. Get 2, and it's just scales.
Yeah.
It's compounding. All right, what else do we have on our list of things I wish I didn't do?
Yeah, so when somebody comes through and makes a mistake, let's say they buy the ebooks and they're like, oh, I thought I was getting paperbacks, refund, right? Don't refund them. And I don't mean that in a like, no refunds. Like, don't be draconian about it. Like, one of the things that you kind of have to remember is that for a lot of readers, this is a new experience for them. They're used to getting all their books from Kobo or Kindle or Amazon or wherever. And so you're asking them to buy from joesolari.com, and it's a new thing for them. So when that happens, though, don't refund. That when they email you asking for a refund, reply back and go, oh, I'm so sorry for the confusion. I understand, how you could have been confused. Listen, I actually have, let's say you sold an 8-book ebook set. You can say, I actually have the 8-book bundle in paperback, and I'll sell it to you at a steep discount, and I can just upgrade your purchase to that. So if let's say you sold a bundle for $10, if I refund them, I eat 80 cents.
Yeah.
And then maybe that reader will come back and take your deal and decide that they will get those paperbacks later. But you've already got them right now.
Yeah.
They're emailing you saying, hey, I want a refund. I thought they were paper books. And like, oh, I'm so sorry you were confused. Listen, I could just upgrade you to the paperback purchase, and I'll give you a really nice discount, and I'll get them shipped out to you tomorrow. And then you don't, all I'll do is charge you the extra $20 on top of the 10 you've already, I'm already in for 10.
Yeah.
And they wanted your books. Like, whatever you did, your Facebook ads, however you got them there, they saw your book covers, they read about the series, and they were like, I want to read these books. So, but if you refund them and then go and charge them for a separate and do another transaction, you're going to eat the refund fee on top. And it's probably not the best customer experience, right? The best customer experience is always, I'm sorry you had trouble, let me make it right.
Amen. Like, I think we can all give instances where we've had something not go right. Maybe it was our fault. We bring it to customer service, and how customer service treats you could win the day
and make a customer for life.
Yeah,
right?
Right? Like, so many times it's the idea of, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. How do we make it right?
Yeah.
And when they say, and then you say, well, you know what? I'm gonna give you this steep discount. I'm gonna throw in some bookmarks, or I'm gonna, I'll pay for the shipping, whatever it might be. Right.
Right.
They're like, wow, that was really great, and they tell friends about it.
Yeah.
They'll only tell more people is if they feel they got screwed over.
Right.
Don't go buy from that Damon guy. He bamboozled me with his ebooks.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that so BookFunnel, obviously we're doing sales delivery, digital delivery for a lot of authors, right? And it's something that I take very seriously, like the responsibility that I see that BookFunnel has, and maybe other companies wouldn't see it this way, but like, I really care about this stuff. I am a lifelong reader. The success, the continued success of authors publishing great books is of great value to me as a reader. And so the way that I see it, if a reader comes through, and this is kind of the hard part, right? So you've convinced a reader to buy from joesolari.com, and they come through your store, and they have a bad experience because your customer support people are jerks, or they're just like, I'm sorry, there are no refunds, no take back fees, and then they do a chargeback and you're going to eat it anyway. But let's just pretend, that you're just like, no refunds. That reader will run back to Amazon and never buy from an author store ever again. They had such a bad experience. They're like, no, I'm going to stay within the safe walls of Amazon, and I'm not going to buy your books. I'm not going to buy books from any author. It's not just that now they're poisoned for Joe Solari. You may have poisoned that reader forever buying from Authors Direct again.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that you and I have talked about, and this was actually a while ago, was the whole idea of authors, because of the way BookFunnel works. There's this really amazing experience in the sense of I can buy from all these different authors, and I can buy from you on your Shopify store. I can buy from this other guy in his WooCommerce or this other thing on PayHip. What doesn't matter. But in the end, all this stuff ends up in one place.
Yeah.
All of our books end up in this one place. And we're, the one thing that I've always seen as the biggest obstacle, especially on the audio side when we're doing stuff. So I bought the first 4 books in Audible.
Right.
I'm not going to buy another one. Well, getting them if you buy book 5, I'll give you,
I'll just go add the first 4 books to your library, to your BookFunnel library.
They're all going to be there now.
Yep.
And you'll have it. Really? In fact, that taught us the whole idea of, for those Whopper audio listeners, once we knew how many books were going in the series, just offer the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right? Make it super easy for them. And you've built some stuff in there to make it easy to deliver that, right?
Yeah.
And so, all of a sudden, you've changed the economics on this thing in such a phenomenal way, because it's like, so we haven't even written the books yet.
And they're already sold.
I've sold 20 of the series that, and those are the guys that you're going to need to discount, because they're such huge audio listeners. They're probably paying $9 a credit.
Yeah. Easy.
Right. So now you're getting 97% of $9 on 10 books times
times 10.
Yeah. And that's ahead of time.
Yeah.
That pays for covers. That right?
That's having the money in hand right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's why, of all the stores. So BookFunnel, we integrate with 6 or 7 different stores that you can sell on. You can go sell on Shopify. You can set up your store. You set up your own WooCommerce on WordPress, PayHip, Gumroad, right? Thrivecart, a whole bunch of them, right? And everybody has their preferred platforms, but generally when I'm talking to newer authors and they're thinking about setting everything up, I'll recommend Shopify, because you almost, if you set up a Shopify store, which you can actually, so Shopify has like a $5 starter plan, $5 a month starter plan. It used to be that was only individual landing pages. They wouldn't give you a store. And now they do. They give you don't get a lot of customization, right? So if you want to install all of these, you want to customize the page. And if you want Shopify to basically host your domain and website, you've got to upgrade to the basic plan. But the starter plan at $5 will let you point your domain, and it will basically host a page of all of your product listings, right? What I love about that is that anybody who's ever been through a Shopify store already has all their information saved and everything is done. So when I come to joesolari.com and I go to buy a set of ebooks, Shopify would be like, oh, hello, Damon. Would you like to use your Visa card? Yes, I would. Great. We've done that. We've already put in your email address. We've already put in your shipping address, all of that stuff. It's all done, right? Yeah. It's as close as you can get to a one-click Amazon-like experience. What's nuts is that in all the years, Amazon still won't let you make a cart of ebooks. Ebooks on paperback, sure, I can load up my cart and I can buy 10 books at a time. Not so ebooks. Ebooks are one click. I have to go buy all 10 of them if I want to do that. Now they have series pages and you can do stuff like that. But if I wanted to buy the first book in multiple series, I got to click through pages. I'll sell you that as a bundle. Here you go. Here's the first book. And then if you're using BookFunnel to deliver, you have the second network effect. If anybody has ever bought a book from another author using BookFunnel, they've probably already got our app. They've probably got, they already have a library of every book they've ever gotten from any BookFunnel author, and they know how to use it, and it'll go right. They can just tap a few buttons and zip it right to their Kindle. So you get the added network effect of being in good company with everybody who's using a Shopify store. and every other author in the business who's using BookFunnel to deliver. And it really is. I buy books from author stores all the time, and as soon as I do, I can just pull to refresh in my BookFunnel app. Boom, the books are instantly there. It's no different once they've gone through that process once with any author who's using BookFunnel. It's no different than if they'd purchase on Amazon. You go buy on Amazon, you pull refresh, and it's like, there's my new book. It just shows right up. Same thing.
Awesome. So was there anything else that they need to know as far as...
The other big mistake that I see is, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is like, getting the sale is great, right? And you're driving traffic. Let's say you're running Facebook ads or you're doing BookBub ads and you're running traffic to your store. I see a lot of authors who forget that they also should be trying to get people onto their mailing list. The mailing list is the number one tool. And I know like so many people are like, oh, mailing lists are old, email's old. Nobody does that. I hate mailing lists. That's great. I hate some mailing lists too, but I'm on the ones for the authors that I really like because I don't want to miss a new book when it comes out. So anywhere and everywhere that you can, all the stores, Shopify, PayUp, all of those guys will let you add a checkbox at the checkout that says, hey, I'd also like to hear from the author and get newsletter updates and stuff like that. Discounts. Like, oh, I email my list every month with sweet discounts and free books and short stories and whatever else, right? Everything that you're doing. The sale is great, right? You should always be trying to get the sale, but no matter where you sell them, you should be trying to get them onto your list because that's how you're going to sell to them later.
Well, what's so important about that is doesn't matter what email provider you're really using now. It works with MailerLite, it works with Klaviyo, it works with ConvertKit. When you have the power of the purchase occasion being automatically ported over into your email system to trigger emails automatically, like that is so powerful in building an engine to keep your customers engaged, right? Don't send them a bunch of like, hey, deals. What I'm saying is if you've got a series, you can design it to automatically be tracking, oh, they bought book one. Maybe like what we do is we'll ask them, hey, are you a fast or a slow reader? Define that. I mean, they say I'm a slow reader, right? So now I'm going to give them different timing functions where I'll reach out to them about book two if I don't see a purchase. And those emails aren't, hey, buy book two. It's this, it's talk about the characters, talk about the story, because a lot of times why they're not buying book two is life got in the way. They just forgot, right?
They bought it. I buy books all the time. They're sitting on my to be read pile. And when I'm done with the current book I'm reading, I'm going to go back to my TBR pile and I'm going to find the next book that I want to read. But maybe they haven't read book one. Not everybody. It's a strange thing because normally you go and you purchase something when you need it, right? If I go over to Lowe's and I need hedge trimmers, it's probably because I need to trim the hedges right now. And I'm not just like walking through Lowe's and go, I mean, sometimes I guess, ooh, that's a good price on hedge trimmers. But mostly I'm like, oh, I need to trim the hedges. I'll buy some hedge trimmers. Books, I buy music. I buy a new Taylor Swift album, which I'm a huge Swiftie. You buy a Taylor Swift, I'm going to listen to it right now. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to be playing in my car. I'm going to be listening to it. Books, I mean, I've been reading since I was a kid, and there are plenty of, back when I was a kid and I only had $6, I was definitely going to read the book that I just bought because I could only afford one at a time. Now I'll totally be like, that looks like a good book. I'll pick that book up and it just goes into my app but I'll sit on it for a while until I'm finished. I'm a series reader and my ADHD brain will only let me read one series at a time until it's done. And so it's like, oh, there's 5 books. I'm sorry, I can't read that book until I'm done with all 5 of these. I don't switch context like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of our kind of opener emails that we do is like, hey, thanks for buying the book. I'm sure you're reading something awesome right now. What are you reading?
Engagement.
Right?
Engagement, right?
And like that question, it's open-ended question.
Right.
Don't have a button. Click like, I'd love to hear what you're reading. Right? And you'll get that information back. Right?
People respond to that way more than, I hope you're enjoying your book. Thank you for purchasing.
And, with that, now you're getting intel on what else your customers are buying. Is it authors Is it, and you're starting to build that relationship. And they're going to be now a little more present about that book that you care. And if they do, like, you want to make them read that book, you're like, I've never heard of this author, and I went and looked it up, and that's a really cool book. Or I personally know Damon.
Or I read that series. Yeah, that's a great series. Wait till you get to book 4, it's going to blow your mind. Right?
But then you're kind of conditioning yourself to understand the job isn't to get every person that buys a book to jam them through that series and get 100% read through. It's to get them in your world and let them, like, if you could get every one of your people that buy book one to read all of that books in the series, you would be doing really well.
You'd be doing incredibly well.
Right.
Nobody's doing that, right?
But if you just imagine if that could happen, but like the function is how long it takes them.
Yeah.
If I'm for the rest of my life, the only books I'm going to read is this series.
Yeah.
You're getting my entire wallet on book reading.
Yep.
It just happens to be it's going to take 20 years because I read a page and I fall asleep.
Right.
That's not a bad reader.
Yeah.
Right? But to try and make him into a whale reader, that's a little...
Yeah, if they're not already that kind of reader.
Yeah.
Like, I read every night, and some nights, I make it 3 pages before I fall asleep, and other nights, I'm up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, darn, I probably should have gone to bed 3 hours ago.
That was a bad life choice.
Yeah, but the other one that I see is I see this misconception, and I know that you know this probably better than most, is like, everybody's afraid of GDPR, and California has the CCA a lot of states, U.S. states, are modeling their sort of privacy laws on what the EU sort of pioneered with GDPR. But here's the thing: even if they don't check that box to join your mailing list, you can still email them afterwards a couple of times as a follow-up, just to say, hey, I hope you're enjoying the book. Did you have trouble getting your books? Whatever, right? You can't add them to a list and then start sending them regular weekly emails. They didn't opt into that, right? They didn't click that checkbox. But that doesn't mean you don't have the right to send them any email at all ever again.
Yeah.
You can email them a follow-up. You can even send them a couple of follow-ups. Just don't add them to a list when they did not consent to be added to a list. But you can use that effectively. Most of the platforms, Klaviyo, Shopify even has like follow-up emails that they'll build into that for you. So it's like, hey, when somebody makes a purchase, if they sign up for my list, you don't need to send follow-ups. I'm going to take care of that. But if they don't sign up, I want to send one email the day after and then one email 2 days after that just says, thank you for your purchase. I appreciate it. Supporting indie authors is a big passion of mine, whatever, right? Whatever you want to say, or ask them about their books or whatever. But even if they didn't sign up for your list, it's still okay to email them a couple of times. Just don't get all spammy with it.
Right. And stuff that we do too is like, even though I think it's a bad idea just to add anybody to your list. Like,
right.
That's what results in having bad email results, right? So at some point after you feel that you've built enough trust, you can say, if you want to hear more from me, sign up for this. I send out an email once a week, or send out an email every 2 weeks, whatever your thing is, right? And if you're using direct sales and you have those read-through sequences, that saves you writing a lot of emails. You build that system and it just works, right?
Yeah.
That 9 months later, they finish book one, they go buy book two, and now they kick over into the book two sequence, right? And there's timers and reminders and stuff that you do there. And like, that's going to, I know for a fact, because we've been doing the system, that'll increase your read-through significantly, like 8 to 12%, right? Well, you do the math on your numbers.
Right.
What does 12% more book sales do for you?
Right.
Like, is that worth writing those emails?
Probably. Particularly when, I know so many authors who just feel that writing emails is like pulling teeth. And it's not my favorite thing to do. But, it's like BookFunnel has a welcome sequence. We wrote it 4 years ago, and we tweak it every once in a while. But it's, for the most part, especially for a series, right, the books don't change, right? BookFunnel changes all the time. We have new features we're going to talk about. Direct sales started blowing up. We didn't used to ever mention direct sales in our welcome sequence. Now we mention it in the first email because chances are good that some of the people signing up are doing that. Your series? No, especially it was like, oh, that's a 12-book series, and it's done. You write those emails one time, and then it's set it and forget it. You just let them, they're going to go out when they're going to go out, and you'll never have to write them again.
Yeah. And, if you're comfortable using AI in your marketing, if you take information about your book series and you put it in there and you say, write me a series of emails with, tapping into these different things, right? And think about what you want to do, because this is part of the reader experience, right? Like, if you could elicit like curiosity about some character that's showing up, or allude to those Easter eggs that you've set up, right? our rat brains are pretty easy to work. You know, and it's a lot better for the experience and how they perceive your brand than buy my books, right. Buy my books, right? How about my Nicaraguan Independence Day sale? How about my my dad has holes in his socks day sale?
Yeah.
You know, that stuff just really, like, do you like that?
Nobody likes that. Yeah. Nobody likes to feel like they're being sold to. Yeah. And that's the line that we walk, because we are, right? And it's like when you go to check out at the grocery store, and you're standing there and you kind of glance over and you stare at all the things there, and you're like, you know what? I do need a new Bic lighter. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, well they put that there because they knew that you might. That's not a bad thing. I did actually need the thing, but nobody wants to feel like they're being sold to. And if they do, it's why most people don't like buying cars, right? Because for most people, the car buying experience feels it's not smarmy to sell you a thing that you actually want.
You came in.
You came here because you wanted a car, and now I'm here to sell it to you. It's all in how you do the selling. That doesn't feel like, at the end, I feel good when I walk away and I got the thing that I wanted, but I don't feel like I was being sold to, which is why you use the email sequences that are more like, hey, I hope you're enjoying book one. I really loved my favorite character of the whole series is blah blah blah, and you haven't gotten there yet, but he has some crazy adventures later in books 3 and 4. Who's your favorite character so far? Right. And that's very different. Now it's still salesy because I'm talking about book 3 and book 4, and I'm assuming, I'm making the presumption that you're going to go on and read the rest of the series, but it's not, hey, you know what? Book 2, you could buy book 2 right now. Hey, are you reading book 2? You can buy book 3. You can buy book 4.
Most of my fans, when they got to book 6, are really shocked by what happened. Right? But I think that, there's, when you start building a system where what you're really trying to do is, it's, like, what does it mean if they're a true fan? But in my view, for certain products, there is no better salesperson for that product than me. Like, I have rationalized that purchase way, 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 way before you've even finished the product. Right? Like, that's kind of an aside story. So, we've never been really happy with the coffee and the coffee making at the hotel at Author Nation. So we were on our way over here, and we've got this kind of fancy coffee maker at the house.
Yeah, we've got one too.
And she's like, and it's getting a little long in the tooth. Yeah. And so here's how perverse our rationalization is. She goes, why don't we ship that one, because we're going to need storage. We're going to have storage in Las Vegas. Why don't we ship our current coffee maker over there so we have it for the room, and we get a new one for the house? Now, the coffee making company did that one cup of coffee at a time.
Yeah, but they built that brand, and I'm sure when you go buy a new one, you're probably going to buy another the same brand. We really like this coffee maker. It really makes great coffee.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a conversation. Right? And the conversation is her getting me off the ledge of the one with the double grinder and all the features and the lasers, and Joe. Yeah. We needed to do this and froth some milk. But look.
Yeah.
It's got lasers. We'll align the froth perfectly with the lip.
But that's,
don't put milk in your coffee. But it's got lasers.
But it could do it if I wanted milk in my coffee.
Yeah, if somebody was unhappy with unlevel froth on their cappuccino, it wouldn't be at our house.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm upselling myself.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that authors that are listening to this should feel that they have the rights, but they should try to do that, right? You want to help your customers have that experience. Like, the sales experience is part of your experience. It's not just what happens when they read the book, but like when they engage with that first ad, when they get to your store, all of that stuff is part of it. And any part of that, for like what we've been talking about, it's most of the stuff we talked about had nothing to do with craft.
Right.
They haven't even gotten to your book yet, and you've turned them off for life.
Yeah. And the craft won't even matter until they get into the book. You got to convince them to get there first using all of these other things.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap up here. And why don't you tell folks about the spectacular experience you're going to be providing at Author Nation? Because you're like, you've sponsored a Story Wars team, so you got a dog in that fight.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
You're having a booth. You're bringing everyone from Houston there.
Yep, we're bringing the entire author team.
Yep. So what else is going on?
I got a couple of workshops that I'm going to be running. I've got sort of a beginner book funnel workshop that's really it's going to be me kind of opening up my laptop and showing you how it all works, right? Because one of the biggest things that I hear, even at Nink, where most of the authors here have, some level of experience, right? At a conference like Author Nation, we get a lot of newer authors, and that's great. We want them to have a great experience and be part of our industry, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that I hear all the time, every time I go to a conference, is like, oh, I have BookFunnel. I love BookFunnel. I know I'm not using it enough. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, you can be forgiven for that. We do a lot of stuff, right? It's not just one thing. Typically, the typical BookFunnel user comes in, signs up because somebody said, oh, I do group promos on BookFunnel. You should do that too. So they come in and they set up and they do that one thing. And then somebody goes, oh, and then they go to a Facebook group and they're like, oh, I'm going to a conference next month and I wanted to sell audiobooks live. How does anybody do that? And they're like, oh, I use print codes on BookFunnel. I have BookFunnel. I didn't know it did that. Right. And so I really wanted to teach a class in the workshop style where it's like, okay, let me show you the things that you can do with BookFunnel. And if you have a question about how to do it, let's just walk through it. I got my laptop open. Let's just click, and let me show you where to go and do it. Yeah. And I did one at the last year's conference, but it was only about 45 minutes, and I didn't really feel like I had enough time to even go through even just the high level of what you could do with BookFunnel. Mm-hmm. And then I have a second workshop that's going to be more like advanced topics, and I may even make that one more about how to set up for selling direct, because that is if you want to join a group promo, you want to come in and kind of do promotions on BookFunnel, you pretty much need to upload a book, go browse the board, and find something that looks good, right? Setting up direct sales, like the talk that I gave here at Nink yesterday, setting up direct sales takes a bit more, right? There's a few more steps to it, and it's really daunting because there's not... The people out there with the information about how to do it are selling it for $1,000 courses or $500 courses. We'll show you how to set up your store or whatever, when really they just need a primer. Like, okay, I got the Shopify $5 starter plan. I hooked it up to BookFunnel. Now what? Like, how do I get things set up? How do I actually make a store so that somebody can come through and purchase something and have it all work? How do I do that? Right?
Yeah, no, you and I have talked about this for a while. I just think that if you're new, you're going to hear really quickly into your experience of coming in and trying to be an author, somebody say to you, well, you need to have BookFunnel, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
So like getting even that basic stuff, and then if you are doing that, I mean, it's a screaming deal anyhow what you charge, but to then understand, like, oh, there's these other features. I may only use them once or twice, but like now,
but they're there.
They're there, right? And I mean, that's true with all software, right? You probably only use 20% stuff 80% of the time, but like there's some really cool stuff. Sometimes you don't need to know how to do it. Like Damon might be up there and he's talking about how to make it connect to Zapier, and you're like, what? It's like, you don't have to be following him to be like making sure you could go out of the room and do a Zapier connection. Understand the tool connects to Zapier. That's all you need to know at that point. Sometime in the future, something may come together and it's like, oh, I could take Zapier and connect it to Tippy Toe software, and then it would go to BookFunnel and it would shoot books over there like that. Boom. That's what it was meant for. It wasn't meant for you to become the BookFunnel guru. That's your job.
And most people don't, right? Most people don't come in and they're like, you know what? You think about something like Word or Excel, right? There's no chance that anybody listening to this is using 10% of what those pieces of software can do. And you don't need to. I just needed to do a spreadsheet to amortize my mortgage, or I just wanted to figure out like what college my son should go to. And so I've put all these numbers in so I can just see it all in front of me. You're not doing any of the rest of the stuff that you can do. Some people use some of those, but even those people don't use maybe 30, 40% because you don't need to, right? And it feels like sometimes that, especially if you go to a conference like Author Nation, where you're going to leave with a notebook of 1,000 things that all of these amazing professionals and authors have said, you need to get home and you need to be doing this. Yeah. And I can tell you, you probably do, but you need to take them one at a time. And you need to prioritize what you're going to do. And the same thing applies to BookFunnel. They sign up. They do the one thing that they signed up for. I need to send out my advanced review copies. Okay, great. I signed up for BookFunnel and because somebody said, oh, you should use that. And I sent out my review copies. Yeah. And then that's it. They close their browser. They go on with their day. And they never think about it again. And that is like, it's one of the reasons why I come to conferences and we sponsor and we bring our whole team to talk to people, because I want you to know that first of all, like, I'm a software engineer. I built all this cool stuff so people would use it, right? Yeah. It's the number one thing that I like, is building cool stuff and then watching people use it and sometimes in the ways that they weren't even intended to be used, and being like, that's a cool idea. I never thought of that. Yeah. Right? So I want people who sign up to BookFunnel to be able to use all the tools that we have.
Yeah. Two things I want to make sure we touch on. One is, you brought up about the 1,000 things at a conference. The notebook that you're going to get when you go into Author Nation, we have session, note. We take your notes for each session, and we actually have a ranking system for impact and effort.
Oh, nice.
So we've got, and in impact and effort, there's 5 things. You rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. So you'll get scores between 5 and 25 for every session. At the end of the day, we'll collect all that information together. At the end of the conference, we'll put this like in an Eisenhower matrix, and the things are the, low effort, high impact. Just circle those 3.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. If you do those, just do one, the one that's the best one. Just circle that and achieve that, and I guarantee you your business will change for the better. The other thing is just something that, Damon and I were out for breakfast before this, and understand this dude is thinking about this all the time.
Yeah.
He's thinking about how he can make the game easier for authors so they can keep writing. So like, this isn't just like, hey, I'm here to sell you software. Like, you're a little broken.
I am. It's this, and I said before, but this stuff really matters to me. Yeah. And like as a lifelong reader and who plans to never stop reading, right? I read fantasy, science fiction. I love dragons and elves and wizards, and I'll take all of that you got, right? Yeah. This stuff really matters, and I will say that like before self-publishing came along in 2008, 2009, when it really sort of started to take off, I kind of felt abandoned by the traditional publishing industry, right? My genre of fantasy had really gone to what we call grimdark, which is like, Game of Thrones came out in 94, and suddenly everybody was like, oh, everybody wants anti-heroes and they want to murder everybody. And I'm like, I was good with like knights and dragons and stuff, and I'm okay reading those same stories, right? And with different characters and different stories, and I don't need all of my heroes to be white shining knights. Like there can be some moral ambiguity and some gray, but at the end of the day, I need to know that the hero is going to turn around and do the right thing. That is why I read fantasy. And for decades, traditional publishing was like, nobody reads that garbage anymore. Now it's all dark fantasy. And I'm like, well, not for me. And I kind of left it behind, right? I didn't read anymore. I'd go crawl into bed and I'd flip around on my phone or whatever, and I wasn't reading books anymore. And then self-publishing came along. My wife got me a Kindle for Christmas in 2010. I remember when it happened. And I got that, and I read some books that had been on my sort of to be read pile from TradPub authors that I'd had sort of stored up. Like, oh yeah, I guess I'll read those books, right? And then I got done with those, and I didn't have anything to read. But if you have a Kindle, you know that you can just click on shop, and you can kind of go shop around. So I clicked down to Epic Fantasy, and I found a book that looked like it had a cool cover, and I was like, oh yeah, it's $2.99, $3 for a book. I mean, like, this is from a kid who, again, like, I'd have $6 to go into the Walden Books, and I could buy one mass market paperback.
Yeah.
One. That was all I got. And I would, like, pore over those for hours. My parents would just leave me in the bookstore because they knew that I was going to go over every spine, every book on that shelf before I dropped that $6. So here's a $3 book, and I'm like, sweet. I just picked it up and started reading it. And suddenly I discovered authors like Michael J. Sullivan, who are like, you know what? Traditional publishing hasn't been publishing the kinds of books that I want to read. So I guess I'm just going to go out and write them myself.
Yeah.
I'll just do it myself. And so, self-publishing came along in 2009, 2010, and kind of saved me as a reader. I mean, now TradPub has come around and they're producing books again that I would like to read, but it just felt like they left me behind for so long. So yeah, this stuff really matters to me. And I do, when we're looking at what we can do with BookFunnel, where can we go? What can we build? What is going to help the most authors? What are our authors asking us for? Because that's what we want to do. How do we, in our little tiny, I mean, we're a small company, we're 10 employees, and we're just like a small little corner of the world. But in our small little corner of the world, how do we do the right things and make the right moves to help this industry and all of these authors keep writing? Because the worst thing, I mean, if you're a reader, and especially if you've become a true fan, the worst thing in the world is discover that your favorite writer just not writing anymore, not doing any books, wasn't profitable, don't feel like doing anything, burned out, whatever, right? It's the worst feeling in the world. I'm never going to get another book from that author. God, that's awful. It's like a sinking pit in your stomach. Like, man, I love those books. I loved that character. I'm never going to get those again. And in my own tiny little way, again, very tiny little corner of the world in the industry, I want to make sure that reading continues and that writing continues until I'm gone. And then the rest of you can burn the thing down, right?
Self-centeredness is okay. But I think that, there were some things we talked about, and who knows if any of that will happen.
Right.
Right. But we're talking about it.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out how to make the game play better.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that there's those conversations and where your creativity goes or mine and what we end up doing, like, there's going to be continuous cool stuff that you're working on. I know, whether it's with Author Nation or with some of the other partners that you work with, you're kind of this nexus of kind of pulling that stuff into, like, whatever the next thing is. Because I was around for that whole process of going direct and audio, and there was a little bit of serendipity, there was a little bit of that was never on a business plan for BookFunnel.
Right. It was not something that it was something we got asked for like the first week we were in business, and we're like, we're not doing audiobooks. We just started doing ebooks. But then, like, the industry moved, right? It's the audiobooks started becoming bigger. Audible is taking the great lion's share of the profits, and we looked around and said, hey, I think we could actually do this. I mean, it took a number of years of being in business and sort of solving more of the other problems first, but after a while, it's like, no, I think we can solve this problem. I think we can help, right? Not like we can solve all the world's ills, but like in this regard, I think we could do that. I think we could help there. And we did.
I remember sitting over in the lobby and you leaned over like, yeah, build an audiobook.
Yep. And it took a while. It took as long.
It's not ready, and how long you took to finally charge for that.
Yeah.
God bless your soul. God bless your soul. And I remember how much you were fretting about that. We had multiple conversations about, like, I don't know what this is going to cost. And rather than you, like, just going out and charging to make sure you didn't get your ass handed to you financially, like, you took the beating.
Yeah. Yeah. We had, it was in beta for 3 years, and most of the beta was just gathering data. We just needed to understand how much was this going to cost us, how much, and then what can we price it at that we feel is really fair, but that we are still profitable and doing well, right? And that was ultimately, it really was in beta for 3 years. So for 3 years, everybody got audiobooks delivered for free, and that's okay. I would rather make the right move than make the first move. Yeah. And we still ended up being the first move, right?
Like you were always the first move in that. Mm-hmm. Maybe there was some guy out there doing some weird stuff, but like in a deliberate, scalable way.
Yeah.
Right. And I know some of the people that were on that platform there was a lot of books being delivered.
Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot of audiobooks now, more than I definitely would have thought. And I think that dovetails with the direct selling.
Yeah.
Like it's that was more than anything. We didn't even know when we were building it what people were going to do with it, right? We thought, like, is it going to be like ebooks? I mean, like, lots of people give away, you know, free first in series or a reader magnet for their sign up or whatever. We're like, are people really going to be doing that with audiobooks? Are authors going to be out there giving away the free first in series audiobook, or is it going to be more about direct sales? We don't know, right? This was all, the whole beta was basically, we don't know. So let's see how people are going to use it. And it turned out that, like, people, you can do listener magnets, you know, whatever we want to call them. I don't think they have a name yet, but it's like, you can absolutely do those.
We call them prequels.
Prequels, there you go. So you can do those in audio, and you can distribute those. But it turned out that, yeah, by and large, more the people that were in the audiobook beta and then ultimately went on to become, subscribers to that plan, they're doing sales. They're doing direct sales of their audiobooks. And for all the reasons we've talked about, they have pricing control. I can sell the audiobook for whatever I want. And for the most part, what we have seen, the trend, if anybody's curious, the trend is when selling direct, most authors are listing their audiobooks for between like $8.99 and $12.99. So well within the range of price of what readers are used to paying on Audible, which is for that credit. And then oftentimes that first in series of any of their series is like $4.99. Well, that's half as much as the cheapest credit that you can possibly get on Audible. So if you want to try me out as a reader, if you want to try out my audiobook, grab the first book. It's $5.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, you know, the strategy that we engage in a lot is, you know, we have a prequel story that's a short story that's setting up the whole series, right? You know, it's what, and what we found is it isn't just for new readers. Like, if you're trying to get an audience into a new series and you're like, hey, here's a gift for you. Like, I know you've been a fan. We're going to be releasing this series. Here's a little short story for you for free. Try it out. Yeah. And if you write it well, they're going to be like, dude,
I want to read that series.
Yeah. Like, this character is cool, right? I wanted to see what happens. What's this about? Like, so I think there, again, you know, you and I, we could keep talking forever. Right?
We could just keep going, but we probably should wrap it up.
Yeah. But like, yeah, you know, Damon, thanks so much for doing this, not just coming on the show, but for all the stuff you're doing for the industry.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
All right, see you later.